Welcome back to Morning Barbados. We're talking about so many things this morning. We've talked about all the technology, and we still have the questions coming, so we'll continue to share it with you. But we're focusing on Peter on Politics, and Peter Wickham is in with us now. Good morning. Welcome to a new week.
Morning. Sorry to shift the conversation away from the exciting world of technology into politics, which is
the world of
boring.
technology.
Oh, they merge. As you can see, they merge very easily.
Yes.
Where would you like to start this morning? Because we have two kind of hot burning topics, don't we?
Yeah, well, I
Let's
guess
start with
the hug.
The hug was a great photo shop. Yeah, great photo opportunity.
No, it was one of the things that I think that is a game changer in terms of Barbadian politics, that anytime we see any overt show of affection between the leader of the opposition and the former leader of the opposition, I think it spells trouble for the ruling Democratic Labour Party. It's well known that the DLP government is being handicapped by several factors, not least of which is the economy that seems to be moving a lot more slowly than many of us would like. These may very well be external factors, but you know, in politics, people tend to punish governing parties for the economic situation regardless of whether or not they're responsible for it. That has historically been a reality, that during recessions, governments tend not to do very well in elections.
President Obama's feeling the same strain.
Well, yeah.
Luckily for him, though, he had Osama bin Laden.
Well, I was about to say that the irony is
that
Prime Minister Stewart doesn't have a bin Laden to assassinate in that way, so that's a bit of a challenge. So yeah, the balance on the other side has been this rift within the Barbados Labour Party, and certainly the rift appears to be healing. Last week, I wrote about the fact that the whole idea of a chairmanship with Mia Motley and a leadership by Owen Arthur sends an interesting message, presuming that he's comfortable with that. I mean, on the paper today, it looks as though he's pretty comfortable, and she doesn't seem uncomfortable either. And as I said, I think that this is a worrying sign for the ruling Democratic Labour Party that will need to do a couple of things now that it appears as though there may be some healing on the horizon. Having said that, however, I continue to make the point that Ms. Motley's really has the upper hand in this whole issue, because ultimately there's nothing that she wants from Owen Arthur, but Owen Arthur wants a whole lot from her. He wants to be Prime Minister again. My presumption is that she also wants to be Prime Minister, but she may feel it a lot easier to be Prime Minister if she does not have to, well, certainly not in this time, but the next election it may very well be easier, and the presumption is that she will get it anyhow. So she doesn't really need a whole lot from him now, but he needs a whole lot from her, and I'm anxious to see how that rift will be healed and how he will make overtures towards her in preparation.
Sorry, Peter, I'm a born skeptic, and we've seen hugs, handshakes, and everything else that are publicity stunts before, and her position seemed quite strong when she was so unceremoniously unseated not a few months ago. You talk about the rift, you talk about healing and all of that kind of thing. Do you think that there really is a path towards, a strong enough support base for her position coming up to the next election, so she will not once again be unseated by what some would call subversive forces within the party? Yeah, no, I mean, and that's a realistic position. She has to know whether or not this is all genuine and whether this can work for her. And that's the reason why I was saying that ultimately she realizes that, you know, she has the upper hand because she has something that he wants. So I would agree with you in that regard. That it's going to be a very, very delicate walk for her, and she has to determine whether, look, there's something in this for her. Having said that, however, you know, whenever I think of Mia Motley, I remember that infamous 1,000 pounds of blubber remark that was made by an infamous person who subsequently became a member of the Barbados Labour Party, a government minister, and is now a senator in the Barbados Labour Party. This is an individual who Ms. Motley subsequently, you know, hopped into bed politically with. I think she understands realities. I've always made the point that she has a very broad back, and she is a politician that understands that in politics these things happen. And I think that if you can forgive a remark like that, perhaps you can also forgive some of the stuff that we've been seeing. So she's demonstrated in the past that she is a mature, forgiving politician with an extremely broad back. She can take abuse, roll with the punches, and she understands the nature of politics. And maybe that is what we will see in a few weeks. Or alternatively, maybe as you're saying, what we will see is her delicately stepping away from this thing and saying, look, you know what? You created this problem, you deal with it. Yeah.
So ultimately then, what you're saying is that a decision may be made in the best interest of each individual. So each individual sees that there is something that they can benefit from. Yeah. So what are some of the things that this a genuine merger here could bring?
Well, certainly it could bring for Owen Arthur, it can bring a statement that, you know, the Barbados Labour Party is alive and well and in a good shape to be able to take on the election. I think that's something that Arthur wants. I don't really see a whole lot in it for her. Mia Mottley has been Deputy Prime Minister of this country already. The presumption is that there's only one job that she wants, and it's a job that Owen Arthur also wants. Presuming that he's not willing to step down and give it to her, he could argue, I would give it to you after 1 or 2 years. But then she has to weigh that and ask herself, do I want to sit in on an Arthur cabinet for 1 or 2 years? I run the risk that things might not work out as they haven't in the past. So I don't know that there is really a whole lot in it for her, but I do agree that it helps the image of the party. And once the Barbados Labour Party appears to be united, I think that is the lack of unity is a major stroke against the Barbados Labour Party at this point in time. And I mean, that really is what he's looking at. It's all about window dressing, it's all about appearances, it's all about political unity and mending offences, etc., etc.
Okay. So it's kind of a watch this space scenario.
Yes.
We will see how it goes. Any feelings on how the other side is doing with the ruling Democratic Labour Party? It continues to take a tongue lashing in the public sphere for its apparent inactivity and silence, really. And
it doesn't appear to be fighting, to be quite honest. You know, as I keep saying to people that, you know, I mean, as an analyst, I'm not given a whole lot to work with. The Democratic Labour Party seems to be quietly confident of its position, quietly confident of its popularity, and quietly confident of the extent to which it can lead Barbados into another election. It's one of two scenarios. Either the Democratic Labour Party knows something that I don't know, or alternatively, the election is further away than we think. But my feeling is that with an election so close, with this kind of stuff happening, I would see a certain amount of activity and activism on the part of the Democratic Labour Party that I'm not really seeing. But having said that, however, maybe they all know something that I don't know. Maybe there's a bombshell in the making, and then maybe hopefully the economic forces will be doing better within a few months.
So are you saying generally quiet is not good political language or strong enough?
I would think it's ill-advised at this stage, but I'm also conscious of the fact that, you know, I don't know everything there is to know about politics, but I do feel that there needs to be a bit more noise in our political environment, because I think the Democratic Labour Party needs also to send a signal that it is ready, and not only in terms of putting candidates in place, but it needs to send a signal of readiness in terms of being able to go forward and defend a manifesto that was put forward 5 years ago, and a manifesto that has been, quite frankly, derailed by an extremely bad economic situation and the death of a leader midstream. So those have been some of the challenges that we've faced. Okay. I don't know if we have time to talk about the Senator Edwards situation.
Absolutely, we do.
Absolutely. We want to hear your take on that one more.
Sure. We're waiting for you to take a breath.
Yeah, we want to talk about the sex now, which is this Senator Edwards' indictment. He's now been indicted. I think the charge is that he's used campaign funds to keep his mistress quiet, which is a kind of a Bill Clinton spin on the whole thing, you know. So it's not about the mistress. It's not about the fact that he cheated on his wife. It's not about the fact that he did it while the wife was terminally ill. It's not about that. It's about the fact that he appears to have used campaign funds to support this effort. The Americans have a very interesting way of bringing this whole idea of campaign donations into it, because you would remember there have been several instances in which persons have been accused of using campaign funds for different contributions. Some time ago there was a vice president who made phone calls from the White House, and he was accused of misusing state resources in the process of campaigning. It's amazing that these little things become issues, where it appears as though somebody who was a friend of Edwards helped to provide some funds to keep the lady quiet while the election was going on, because he felt it was not in his interest to have this issue come out. And I agree. Is this a misuse of campaign funds, or is this something which happens? The Americans believe it is the former, and this is really what he's being charged with. When I compare him with Strauss-Kahn, an interesting scenario emerges, because both of them have opted to take this matter to trial. In my opinion, Edwards would have done well to have come a plea bargain so that he does not have to carry this issue any further. Because, I mean, he's dead in the water politically. I don't know that he has a huge reputation to defend, because already he's an adulterer, and, you know, everybody's saying bad things on her. How could you do this to such a sweet woman while she was pregnant? While she was ill. So my feeling is that he could have negotiated, come to an agreement, and let it go away. Strauss-Kahn is slightly different. But both of them are facing this political challenge of coming to a plea bargain that says it is perhaps possible that I could have done something, but what I'm saying is I don't really want to talk about it. And I think that really is the political optics that both of them are looking at going forward. With Strauss-Kahn, however, he will begin his defense shortly, and his defense essentially will call this poor immigrant maid a liar. Which I think is going to be very, very difficult to sell on the American public, the way that the whole thing is put forward. And I'm anxious to see how it will look, her being cross-examined on the witness stand and being accused of lying against this powerful individual. While the Senator Edwards issue is slightly different, where he's trying to bring up a technical issue of the extent to which he knew that he was using campaign funds, misusing them, or whether or not he was actually in fact misusing them. And the two things are very interesting. But yeah, it is an indictment on grounds related to the misuse of funds. We talk about campaign finance reform in the Caribbean so much, and I'm always interested in the discussion, because I feel that ultimately it will go in a direction where these types of issues, which are relatively commonplace in the Caribbean, happen on a regular basis. And the question can be asked, you know, if it happened in Barbados, would it be an issue?
All right.
We have to ask that question next week when we come back. Another question for you coming up later on about the Sarah Palin run. We're going to see if we can talk about that next week. Peter on Politics has been here to give us an analysis of the hug, as I'm calling it, on the back page, and of course the John Edwards scandal continues.